Our session today will be in strategic management, where we're going to review this exam paper. So, question number one reads, it's a case study at Beach and Bush in Cape Town, South Africa. We see it every day. A group of colleagues arrive at an event, a little hesitant, maybe even skeptical. By the end of the day, they are laughing, shouting teams, chants, giving high fives, and working like they have known each other for years. That's right, there is a team spirit. But what is team spirit really, and why should your company care? Question: clarify why many Africans find the notion of team spirit difficult in the work environment. Explain cultural pitfalls that may help business officials become better managers. All right, so we, in this case, are looking at an important topic to do with team spirit, the difference with the groups. So, what is team spirit? Team spirit basically refers to that sense of unity, mutual support, shared purpose among employees, those that are working towards an organizational goal. So, in many African workplaces, in many developing countries, team spirit faces unique social cultural challenges. So, here are some of the reasons why it is so. Number one, cultural diversity. Cultural diversity. So we're basically looking at the first question of the case study. So I'll be explaining this, and I'll ask you to add a few things that you may have already your own understanding. Okay. So the question basically is asking why it is so. So we must understand the definition of team spirit, embodying issues of commitment and open communication. So one of the most ethnically um, diverse continents in the world is Africa, that has many tribes, that has many cultural norms that exist within the same country or organization. So cultural diversity and ethnic fragmentation is one because employees often identify more strongly with their tribes, and this is what we are having in Zambia. They identify themselves more strongly with their ethnic group or region than with the organization. So this ethnic allegiance can lead to some kind of favoritism, discrimination, and formation of cliques in the workplace. This may weaken cooperation and unity. So in Zambia, for instance, employees may form, in brackets, informal alliances within tribal lines. For instance, here in Solwezi, the Kaundes, if you speak there, I don't know how it is your experience placing. There are also cliques that are Bembas. Okay, this may lead to tension, may lead to mistrust, and also limited collaboration on team projects. So the impact that this may have is that it may prevent the creation of common purpose and collective commitment that may underpin the true team spirit. So that is one point. So just to clarify, we're looking at the reason why Zambian African nations find the notion of team spirit difficult to cope with in a work environment. So the first is cultural diversity. Secondly, it's hierarchical power and power distance culture. Okay. So in most African societies, generally, they have power distance struggles here where authority and hierarchy is deeply respected. So in certain environments, subordinates really question or challenge, they rarely question or challenge their superiors, even when they have a valuable idea, especially in the army. So this dynamic actually limits participation. It also limits creativity and open dialogue in almost all spheres of uh, life. So in government institutions, like in Zambia or Zimbabwe or Kenya, decisions are usually top down. So employees will have to wait for instructions instead of contributing ideas collectively. So this may instill fear of offending or appearing disrespectful to their superiors. The other hindrance is cultural survival and economic pressures. So economic challenges in African countries will contribute to individualistic behavior in a workplace. So due to high unemployment, the low wages, employees will often what? Focus on self-preservation, the side business hustles, and securing the personal benefits rather than pursuing team goals. So an employee, for instance, in Osaka may want to prioritize their personal sales commission outside the business or over team targets, especially when salaries are delayed. So you find people who want to take advantage of loopholes because of the economic hardships. So the impact this has is when individual economic interests precede organization objectives, teamwork will suffer. Are we following? The other is low trust levels. So the low trust levels, so trust we know is the foundation of what? Teamwork. So unfortunately, in many African workplaces, or Zambia to be specific, trust is often undermined by favoritism, by nepotism, or perceived corruption. So employees may believe that promotions and rewards these ones are based on personal connections rather than on merit. So this perception will actually reduce motivation to collaborate since team efforts may not be fairly recognized. So this is one hindrance. Okay, trust. So historical issues of corruption, favoritism, these ones may cause mistrust and favoritism in government departments will reduce what faith. And the other is the lack of organizational support for team building. So we must understand that team spirit does not develop spontaneously. It actually requires some intentional effort that comes through training, comes through leadership, and also through structured activities. So many African nations will neglect investing in team building programs, in leadership development, or in employee engagement activities. Why? Due to limited budgets or lack of awareness of their importance. So, if you have an SME in Zambia, management will just focus on production, profit making. They will ignore activities like retreats. Okay, so this may impact the company adversely because without structured opportunities for bonding, employees will remain disconnected and will view each other as competitors. The other hindrances are colonial legacy and leadership styles. So autocratic management that was inherited in the colonial systems of the olden days. We know that management systems in Africa were largely inherited from these colonial administration, which were rigid. They had that hierarchical authoritarian structure. So now these systems usually emphasized on obedience to the authority rather than teamwork. They uh, looked down on creativity and empowerment. So as a result, many managers continue to adopt that command control style. So in certain parasite organizations in Zambia or Zimbabwe, the decision making still follows that strict bureaucratic channel. So employees become passive executors instead of active contributors. Then lastly, but not the least, limited communication and feedback mechanism. That is another hindrance. So employees usually feel excluded from decision making. So this may lead to disengagement and weak team cohesion. So it so happens that many workplaces and communication tends to be too formal and one direction from top to down. It leaves subordinates feeling what? Unheard or undervalued. So a manager wants to make decisions without even consulting the team members, and this may result to low morale. And the impact is that employees will feel excluded from the decision making. So all in all, developing team spirit in African workplaces requires what? Addressing deep-rooted social, cultural barriers. So organization must promote inclusive leadership, foster cross-cultural understanding, and create what? A transparent reward system. They must invest in team building activities. So moving that way will improve. I hope that is elaborate, unless there's anything to add. Question number two.
Clear, Mr. Collins.
Using world example, critically discuss the reason behind business globalization and why business firms require to become major and less global in nature of their operations. So using an example in the real world, discuss the reason behind businesses.
Um,
Um,
Sorry, Mr. Collins.
yes, please.
The part B, the one that saying explain that may help business officials to become better managers.
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. So explain cultural pitfalls that may help business officials to become better managers. So what are some of the pitfalls that may help business become better managers? So part B, okay, we're looking at the pitfalls here. Then we're just going to look at these 10 uh, pitfalls. So, okay, what are some of the pitfalls? So there are pitfalls that should be identified. Pitfalls we refer to misunderstandings or misinterpretations or wrong assumptions. There are some wrong assumptions that may arise from these differences in the cultural values, the beliefs, the communication styles. So these pitfalls can negatively affect management effectiveness. They can negatively affect teamwork or organization success. So we need to understand these pitfalls and how they enable managers to develop cross-cultural competence that will enhance communication, that will lead to diverse teams become more effective. So by understanding or recognizing these cultural pitfalls, it will help managers transform into opportunities. So the pitfalls that may help managers become better officials, number one, that's what we call ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism. What is ethnocentrism? It is simply what? The belief that one's own culture, values, it's a belief that one's own culture, one's own values, and the way of doing things are superior than others. Now, this can lead to poor decisions and ineffective relationships. People feel stronger and are more intelligent. So when managers judge employees based on their own cultural lens, they may interpret actions incorrectly. For instance, if you're dealing with Westerners, so a Western manager may view um, or maybe the whites, okay, in the Western countries, a white person may view African employees uh, to lack confidence, when in fact it's just a sign of respect, when that humility, okay? So a British expatriate in Zambia may insist on the Western type of direct confrontation in meetings with locals. So some people may think this is being what insubordinate. So managers must adopt cultural relativism, which means that they should evaluate practices based on local cultural norms, not through their personal cultural biases. Okay, the other one is misinterpretation of non-verbal communication. So non-verbal communication, we're looking at what gestures, eye contact, the postures, facial expression. These ones differ widely between cultures. So misreading these cues sometimes may lead to serious misunderstandings in cross-cultural interactions. So in Zambia, for instance, if you're maintaining prolonged eye contact with elders or superiors, you may be seen as being what? Disrespectful. But in Western countries, it's a sign of confidence and honesty. So similarly, if you're nodding in the African culture, they may not always mean agreement, but rather it's a polite acknowledgement. So here, the key lesson is that managers must study and respect local non-verbal norms and avoid assuming that their own gestures or their own signals will be interpreted in the same way. So this cultural awareness in body language will improve what? Harmony in the workplace. The time orientation difference. Time orientation difference. So in the Western countries, okay, like America, USA, they value punctuality because they know that time is money. Whilst in African context, we are more flexible. We call it African time. Uh, call it African time. So the different cultures will perceive and manage time differently. So this may lead to misunderstandings. So I was watching a comedy by Trevor Noah who at some point was asking why one person was late. And it happened that they were Nigerian and they understood. So, oh, Nigerians, are you actually alien for being a Nigerian? Because in Nigerians, they don't value time. So what I'm trying to say is that managers must set clear expectations, but also they must adapt to local time perspectives. They must understand uh, the linear and the flexible time orientations to enhance cooperations. Then the other is attitude towards authority. So different cultures have distinct views about authority and hierarchy. So this may affect employee-manager relationships. So in many high-power distance societies, like most African nations, questioning authority is considered disrespectful, and employees will tend to wait for instruction and rarely challenge decisions. So in Zambia, junior staff may hesitate to speak in meetings when they have what? Better ideas. They may fear that it will appear like insubordination. So managers must encourage participatory leadership, which will create um, ecological safety. Okay, so we are together. We are still looking at what cultural pitfalls that may help officials become better managers. So
Yes, we are together.
the key cultural pitfalls, we talked about it. Ethnocentrism, misinterpretation of nonverbal time orientation, and attitudes towards authority. Now we're looking at collectivism and individualism. Collectivism. So collectivist cultures, they usually value harmony, cooperation, and community welfare, whereas individualist cultures, they usually prioritize what? Personal achievement and autonomy. So in most African cultures, these ones are typically collectivists, meaning employees who prefer teamwork, consensus, and also maintaining harmony over confrontation of personal recognition. So in Zambia, decisions are often made after group consultations, even if it takes longer. Whereas in the Western countries, managers may perceive this as indecisiveness. So managers here, key lesson must adopt what consensus based on approaches and also must design performance systems that will reward group achievements. The other pitfall would be that of gender role differences. So cultural differences about gender roles can actually affect leadership and participation in workplace. So in some countries, especially Africa, or traditional norms, they view leadership as male dominated. So it limits opportunities for women in decision making. So female managers, for instance, in Zambia, may actually face what resistance from male subordinates who are not accustomed to taking instructions from women. So the key lesson is managers must promote inclusivity, gender equality, and diverse awareness. This will improve performance and morale. Other is language um, barriers. Okay, language barriers. So in dealing with language barriers, we're looking at the differences in language. They can cause serious miscommunication, especially in a multicultural workplace. So foreign managers may use idioms or slang or techno jargon that locals may not understand. This may lead to errors or confusion. So, for instance, South African manager may be telling staff to table the discussion, which in Africa means to start discussing, but it may be misunderstood by a British colleague where it may mean to postpone this discussion. So managers should use simple, culturally neutral language that will avoid that ambiguity. The differences also in perception of incentives and motivation. So there are motivational drivers across cultures. What motivates employees in one culture may not work in the other. So in Western managers, they often assume financial rewards as the main motivator. Also in African, it's job recognition, job security, and belonging. So in Zambia, for instance, public acknowledgement or appreciation from superiors can motivate employees to work hard. So managers should also customize motivation strategies based on cultural expectations and needs. Okay, then we have religion and religious spiritual beliefs. Okay, here the lesson is we must understand that religion plays a significant role in shaping behavior at workplace in terms of ethics and interpersonal relations in Africa. You and I in our workplaces would want to reflect the light of Jesus Christ whom we believe. So employees, their religious commitment, it will influence availability, their dress code, their lifestyle, and these ignoring these practices may cause a conflict and motivation. For instance, in Zambia, the Muslims require prayer breaks or flexible hours during Ramadan, and Christian workers may prioritize attending to church on Sundays. So managers must learn to respect religious diversity and accommodate these reasonable requests and integrate inclusivity. So all in all, when we recognize these cultural pitfalls, managers will be able to develop cultural intelligence. Okay? Which is the ability to interpret unfamiliar behaviors and adapt effectively across cultures. So by learning from these pitfalls, businesses can do what? Can become more empathetic, more inclusive, and strategically effective leaders. So a culturally intelligent manager will foster trust and will improve communication. Okay, so what have we talked about? What are some of the key pitfalls and lessons? We've talked about the centrism, where you need to avoid cultural superiority. You need to practice cultural relativism. Non-verbal communication, we said you need to interpret what gestures and signals carefully. Time orientation differences, you need to balance punctuality and flexibility. Sometimes when you're too punctual, 14 on the dot, if somebody comes late, may think. We also talked about attitudes towards authority, so you need to encourage participative leadership. Collectivism and individualism, you need to promote group harmony. Gender role differences, you need to foster inclusivity and equality. Language barriers, you need to communication in simple language. Motivation, you need to adapt to reward systems culturally. And religious beliefs, you need to respect different religions. I hope that is clear. Okay, so we got to
It is, Mr. Cornerstone.
question number 2. Using real world example. Using real world example. Um, we discuss the reason behind business globalization and why firms require firms to become major and less global in nature of their operations. Okay, so what is globalization? What do we mean by globalization? So globalization is a process by which businesses expand operations across national borders. So you're globalizing, going to other markets, integrating technology, production systems worldwide. So what are some of the reasons why businesses will go global? So globalization, you're increasing your interconnectedness, interdependence of nations through trade, increasing commerce. So there are many reasons behind globalization. Okay. Number one is market expansion. Market expansion. Okay. So market expansion is one of the primary motivations for globalization. So here, markets are expanding to enhance their customer base. So over relying on domestic markets, as local markets sometimes reach saturation, firms may seek to enter new territories so that they may increase on their sales and may diversify on their income streams. So, for instance, ShopRite, which is a South African retail giant, it has expanded to Zambia, Malawi, just to capture this untapped market. So the impact is that operations will now allow what? Firms to operate and generate revenues from diverse economies. So it's mainly to expand. Secondly, economies of scale. So economies of scale, operating on a global scale enables what? Firms to achieve economies of scale. So this will lead to reductions in the cost per unit of production due to increased what? Volume output. So when production facilities and distribution networks are spread across several countries, the fixed costs are distributed over larger sales volume. So this will reduce the overall cost per unit. So Coca-Cola, for instance, it benefits from this global supply chain efficiencies. So producing concentrates centrally whilst bottling locally to reduce on logistical costs. So firms will enhance profitability and price competitiveness. Then the other is that of access to resources, land, and talent. So globalization will allow firms to exploit the competitive advantages of different regions, like the availability of raw materials, cheaper labor, and also specialized expertise. So Chinese construction companies, for instance, that are operating in Zambia, they have invested in copper mining, infrastructure, road construction, uh, to access these resources and make it cheaper and affordable. So access to resources, the impact that this may have is that the access will improve production efficiency and also will strengthen competitive advantage through cost reduction. All right. Are we together? Any questions so far? Am I breaking? So we are looking at what? Critically looking at the real examples behind why businesses are going what? Global, and why business firms will require to become major and less global in nature of operations. Okay, so reasons for globalization. We talked about market expansion, economies of scale, access to resource and talent, and also technological advancement. So improved communication and logistics systems, internet will make global operations flexible. Also risk diversification. So if you're operating in multiple countries, you will reduce exposure to economic and political instability, this risk in one nation. Competitive edge. So going global presence will enhance the brand image and competitiveness. We know of FNB, we know of MTN, Airtel, they leverage on what? Cross-country operation. This will strengthen brand equity. The other reason is that firms of government policies and trade liberalization. Okay, so the free trade agreement like COMESA. Yeah, so global, looking at why governments or companies would want to go global. So we looked at favorable government policies. Sometimes, um, because of trade agreements, they encourage firms to expand and access global markets. For instance, regional economic communities like COMESA, SADC, they will promote free movement of goods and services and capital. So these reduced tariffs and simplified trade procedures will stimulate intra-Africa investment and regional business growth. And the question still comes, why should claims also be less global in nature? It's what we call selective globalization. So even if globalization has advantages, overexpansion also can expose firms to new risks where organizations become prone to selective or strategic globalization, which we call localization. So you need to have a balanced approach in combining your global presence with local adaptation. So number one, the reasons why firms must be less global in nature. Number one, um, raising protectionism and trade wars, raising um, protectionism and trade wars. So in recent years, because of geopolitical tensions and protectionist policies, these have increased. So countries are imposing tariffs to protect what? Domestic industries. US, we saw how Donald Trump has started imposing tariffs. So the US-China trade disputes have disrupted the global supply chains. So these have forced firms to reconsider their aggressive global strategies. Secondly, the need for localization. So every country has a unique culture, uh, a unique legal and consumer preferences. So excessive standardization may alienate those local consumers. So for instance, Dangote Group, you've been asked to give examples. Dangote Group, it localizes its production facilities to each African country in Zambia just to adopt to our local trends. Okay. So the lesson here is that successful global firms will localize their operations and products and management approaches to remaining relevant in cultural and social norms. Then operational complexity. So managing a global organization can become costly and complex due to what? Differences in the legal system, taxations. So smaller firms may struggle with compliance, coordination. So this may lead to inefficiencies. Number four, economic and political risk. So political instability um, and fluctuating exchange rates, inconsistent policies in a host nation can negatively affect global business. So mining firms, for instance, in Africa, have faced sudden tax changes and policy reversals that have disrupted what? Profitability. So, in conclusion, we know globalization has an opportunity and a challenge to businesses. So, to enable market expansion, economies of scale, access to resources, but it also introduces operation and cultural complexities. So, the key lies in strategic globalization, where you're going to expand internationally whilst adapting to local context. So businesses that will adopt to a new concept which is called localization, where you have to balance efficiency with local responsiveness. Are we together? So this is what we are talking about here. Okay. So we go to question number 3. Using an example of your choice in Zambia, explain the importance of practicing corporate social responsibility in business development and describe the implications of integrating organization strategy with culture. Okay, so what is the importance of social corporate responsibility? So, what is social corporate responsibility? It refers to a company's commitment to conduct business ethically, but also to contribute to development of the locals. Okay, we call it CSR in short. So, importance of social corporate responsibility. cannot be overemphasized. So we're looking at two elements, A and B. Hmm. Social corporate responsibility looks at a company's ethical obligation to do what? To contribute positively to society whilst conducting business. It is just beyond making a profit. So CSR will focus on environmental sustainability, the social welfare, and also ethical governance. So in Zambia, CSR is recognized as a strategic tool that will strengthen organizational reputation. It will also foster community support and also enhance what? Employee engagement. So now, what is the importance of practicing CSR? So number one, it will enhance what? Corporate image and reputation. So engaging in socially responsible activities will improve how the public will perceive a company. For instance, ZESCO Limited, their limited rural electrification projects. These ones will bring electricity to undeserved communities like Mumena, where I am currently. Okay, so these are corporate image.
What are you doing there, Mr. Collins, by the way?
There's a consultation that I came to do for the mines, but
Ah,
social
okay.
corporate responsibility in short. So because we have
Oh,
excelled in teaching people like you, so we're given to teach rural schools in having the international standard of school teaching. So we're teaching teachers how to teach the way I teach you people.
ah,
Yeah.
wow. Okay. That's brilliant. That's beautiful. Okay.
Well, once we excel in that field, we
Noted.
want to route it to all rural schools in Zambia so that the problem we've been facing is why is it that the performance in rural settings is not, is the teachers, the pupils. So we're appealing to the mind, to the teachers, and also to combine academic excellence with spiritual excellence as well as telling them that they are able to do. It's just a different kind of teaching methodology we're doing here. So
Okay.
that is the importance of what? Um, Corporate social responsibility. It will enhance the corporate image and reputation. So companies will enhance or engage in these socially responsible activities, and in turn they'll gain recognition. So this rural electrification project that I was talking about, it's there to provide cheap power to communities who cannot afford it to buy at the right price. So the impact may have is that there's strong reputation that will attract customers and investors. Secondly, it increases what? Customer loyalty and market support. So customers here are more likely to support companies that will demonstrate care for the communities. So I've seen how the mines are doing supporting here. So they support education. In fact, we are partnering with the mines, doing some nice building blocks down there, health facilities, they're funding schools and infrastructure. So the impact is that you are going to have what? Loyal customers that will increase and will repeat business revenues over a long time. Okay, so I have sent these notes through. We'll end here for today.